Welcome to MRK Tutorials. To make web developer life smoother, easier and adaptable to any framework or library, DOM plays a key role. Basically, understanding DOM is directly proportional to growth in web development. So that is the reason why I chose DOM series as first playlist in this MRK Tutorials. Without further more delay, let's get started understanding what DOM is. Do not forget to subscribe and like. Also, share to all buddies who are willing to start or already working on web development. Before starting, what is DOM? Please refer to these prerequisites. Basics of HTML and CSS, linking style sheet, should know little about object and arrays. If you don't know any of the above prerequisites, I would recommend you to stay tuned to our channel for tutorials on them. At first, we will start understanding theory part of this video. So, what is DOM? Abbreviation for the DOM is Document Object Model. But since this is not a Viva in computer lab, we'll be learning more. DOM is Programming API for HTML and XML documents. But what is an API? An API is defined as specification of possible interactions with a component or software. So, DOM is a programming API to make some interactions like access, modify, add, delete, etc. It defines the logical structure of document and the way a document can be accessed and manipulated. If a UI doesn't have a correct UI, we could not understand this concept correctly. So, this logical structure can be expressed as a tree. The DOM represents the document as nodes and objects. It may not be clear at the moment, but once we get into action, it will start clearing clouds. So now we will understand what happens when a web page loads into browser. When web page is loaded, the browser creates document object model of that page, that is DOM. DOM is not completely itself an API. The page content is stored in DOM and may be accessed and manipulated via JavaScript. So API is nothing but DOM plus JavaScript. Let us take an example. Let's load this website html.spec.whatweg, one of the standard websites to learn deep about HTML. Let us inspect using Chrome Developer Tools and look at the Element tab. Now we hard refresh website using Ctrl+Shift+R. In Elements tab, let's scroll down and see what it has loaded. After certain scrolling length, it showed us to load more nodes. So we can understand that browser has loaded, analyzed and converted HTML file into a DOM. But what we see in browser developer tools, is it really a DOM? What we see in viewport or visual part of the browser is combination of DOM and CSSOM. So CSS object model. And developer tools elements tab is closest approximation of DOM loaded in the browser. Though it is similar to other forms of source HTML document, DOM is different in number of ways. It is always a valid HTML. It is a living model that can be modified by JavaScript. It doesn't include pseudo elements and also it doesn't include hidden elements because pseudo elements and hidden elements like display none are from CSS and real DOM does not have an effect. But in browser we can see it because it is combination of DOM and CSSOM. So to understand this clearly, we will be diving to action part of this video. The projects created in this series are pushed to GitHub and link is mentioned in the description below. So now we will be understanding how DOM tree looks using live DOM viewer and this link is also mentioned in the description below. First, we will create index.html file and open in browser. Here I used Visual Studio Code as my editor and live server plugin or extension to serve my file to browser. To make things quick, I will copy paste already written snippet where I have two parent division tags or div tags with IDs main sibling 1 and main sibling 2 and each has two children paragraph tags or p tags with IDs child sibling 1 and child sibling 2. Please take a note that main sibling 1, main sibling 2 or child sibling 1 and child sibling 2 are just used for understanding purpose. But correct way of writing is unique IDs to be maintained for entire document. You cannot use child sibling 1 2 times or child sibling 2 2 times. Open live DOM viewer link online. Copy paste the code in the first box or markup box. Let's start analyzing what has rendered. HTML is root and has two nodes, head and body, which are direct children to it. Similarly, for body tag, there are two nodes with our IDs main sibling 1 and main sibling 2, like direct children. And similarly, for each div tag, there are two nodes with our IDs child sibling 1 and child sibling 2, like direct children to each. If we see what has rendered, it looks like tree or a side tree. To understand that browser's DOM is combination of CSSOM and real DOM, we will be creating a style sheet and linking to our HTML file. We could also use internal CSS in the same HTML file, but I always prefer to use external CSS. First, we will be adding display none for main sibling 1 ID selector. We can see that main sibling 1 is not visible in viewport but present in DOM in the Elements tab. And similarly, we try applying pseudo selector before to main sibling 2. We can see that in viewport it has loaded content from CSS, and also it is shown in Elements tab in Developer Tools. I hope that what we covered in theory part are understood in the action part. Don't forget to share and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget. Hi guys, welcome to mrktutorials. If you ever looked at a JavaScript code or tried to copy paste code from Stack Overflow or Reddit, you might have seen document.getElementById or document.querySelector. There are many developers who don't know that word document in these two expressions, but they might have used them thousands of times in their web development journey. If you are an Angular developer, you might have used renderer to create element or set attribute, especially in directives. So, if you are searching for where to start, I would happily say that this is the beginning point to learn document in the JavaScript DOM. What is directive or what is Angular is part of another coming up series in our channel. So please do subscribe to our channel for more and more awesome tutorials. So in this video, I will be explaining what is document and also where to see its properties, methods, deprecations, editions and browser accessibilities, etc. clearly. Before starting this video, I would highly recommend to go through these prerequisites. What is DOM? A tutorial on this topic is already made in our channel. Please watch it before this video. And second one being also basic understanding of what interface is. Let's start theory part of this video. So, what is document? Document is object or interface that represents the web page loaded. If you want to access any element in an HTML file or HTML page, you always start with accessing the document object. Conceptually, It is the root of the document tree and provides the primary access to the document's data. This interface also inherits from node and event target interfaces. So it has methods of both node and event target interfaces. There is not much in theory, but it is starting point for many coming videos in this series. This is a small snippet of document interface where we can see methods and read-only attributes. But this is not it, since it has inherited from node and event interfaces. Document has more methods and properties. But where to look at all these methods and properties, and also how to implement them clearly? To answer such questions, I was just trying to give a basic walkthrough of MDN docs, which is also one of the standard maintained by Mozilla. On opening page, we can see small and clear definition. If we see here at the top left, we can see jump to section to give index of the entire page. To just bottom of it, we can see related topics like directory tree or like an accordion. If we scroll further down, we can see constructor for this interface followed by properties. On scroll, we can see how many properties it has, like document.body, document.head, and also extensions like picture-in-picture we might have used in videos or YouTube videos, event handlers like copy paste. On further scroll length, we can also see methods like create element, create attribute, which we will be using them in action part of this video, and also followed by events like click and specifications and deprecations of this document, and at the end we can see browser compatibility and which browser it will be compatible with. So it is difficult for all to remember all these above details for every interface in the DOM. So then this documentation comes in handy. Just Google MDN docs and type what are you searching for. Click on the hyperlink and follow through. For methods and properties, we can also see simple example to use it. Enough of theory and documentation part. Let's start some cooking in VS Code Kitchen. In this action part of video, I will be explaining two inherited methods of DOM, or to be clear, methods of node interface: create element and create attribute. We are also using get element by id, add event listener, if condition, const keyword in this video. So if you don't know about these expressions or methods, subscribe to our channel. These are all covered in upcoming video. To start with the action part of video, first create three files: index.html, main.js and style.css, or simply copy paste from what is DOM folder. Embed JavaScript file using script tag in HTML file. To make things quick, I pasted part of code. Parent being div with container class and children being input tag, button and unordered list or UL tag, each with unique ID accordingly. UL tag is used to create list of items in HTML, and li tags are children for this tag. We are trying to make basic to-do list app by adding what we have entered into the input field. Or otherwise, we can say it as appending li tags to UL tag with our text entered. Similarly, in JS file, we used getElement by ID to get our tags and assign to const variables accordingly. We also created a variable with name entered value to assign what we have entered into that input field. We added input event listener to input tag ID and just assigned value we added input event listener to input tag ID and just assigned that value to our variable. We also added click event listener to that button. On click of it, we are appending our newly created element with using create element method. We can also see a new word inner HTML, a property of li element, which we use to add entered text. So we can see an output of our code in browser viewport. Similarly, we can also add attribute what we have entered into that input field to that span tag and assign value to it with value added successfully. Here in this video, we are discussing three words commonly: properties, attributes, methods. So, what is meant by them and how does these differ from each other? Don't think much, we are posting next video on these topics: properties, methods and attributes. Please do watch to be in the loop of learning. Hi guys, welcome to mrktutorials. Here we are in a journey to learn what is DOM and how DOM can be manipulated using JavaScript. But while we are moving forward, we will come across three magical words: property, method and attribute. For those who are following this DOM series playlist from starting onwards, you might have definitely observed these words used in videos. I think these three keywords are completely new for those who started TypeScript directly without much knowledge on JavaScript. Of course, why would we miss a chance to cover TypeScript, as it is my favorite as well. So please do subscribe to our channel for more and more awesome tutorials. So in this video, I will be explaining what is property, method and attribute, and also differences between them. I would also use some of the community explanations along with the standard ones to make you understand more clearly about them. Before starting this video, I would highly recommend to go through these prerequisites completely till end along with the examples. What is DOM and document interface? These two tutorials on this topic is already made in our channel. Please watch it before this video and then you are good to go. So what is DOM property? When we say a sentence like, suppose we have element with id x and add some style to it. Here id mentioned here is the property of that element. So by using this id, we can get that element in the DOM tree using getElementById method, and after getting it, we can set styles or values or another properties to it. So like similarly, if we take inner HTML, which we used in our previous video in this DOM series playlist, we can be able to get what is already present in between the opening and closing tags of that element, and also change or assign new one to it. So simply we can say that a property is something that can get or set value to an element. These properties are defined by the DOM when the browser parses the HTML and generates the DOM. Each of these elements in the DOM have their own set of properties which are also set by the browser. So we need to check once in browser compatibility section of that each property in MDM docs before using them for wide usage. Some of these properties can have their initial value set by HTML attributes. Whenever a DOM property changes, the change has influence on the rendered page or rendered DOM tree. So this page will be immediately re-rendered and apply changes. As we discussed, examples for these properties are inner HTML, ID, class, etc. So what is DOM method? Every DOM element has set of properties when loaded into browser which are set by the browser. But to use these properties effectively or even get element from the DOM tree, we need to have something to perform an action. So if you look at the document interface in our previous video, you will observe some functions in it. These functions are called methods. A method or a DOM method is an action you can do. A method or a DOM method is an action you can do on those elements using those properties. These are helpful in performing functions like add, delete, access elements in DOM, etc. The method we used in our previous video, that is getElementById, is example for this DOM method. What is an attribute? Attributes are defined by HTML. Attributes are additional information which we can put in the HTML to initialize certain DOM properties. We can create custom attributes using document methods and assign to certain element. Whenever property changes, DOM gets re-rendered, but when attribute changes, it won't be re-rendered. If we see here, the methods are nowhere near to properties and attributes. Only properties and attributes share little common things, but only difference between them is attributes are referring to additional information for an object, and properties are describing the characteristics of an object or characteristics of an element. I hope by now you might have understood the difference between property, method and attribute. Please check these note points once. Attributes initialize DOM properties and then they are done. Property values can change, attribute values cannot. The HTML attribute and the DOM property are not the same thing, even when they have the same name. For a given DOM node object, properties are the properties of that object and attributes are the elements of attributes property. So to understand these points more clearly, we will be creating new project. The codes are as usually pushed to GitHub repo and the link is mentioned below in the description. Have you thought how amazing websites are developed in this world? You might have seen tons of websites in day-to-day life, from social networking websites to blogs. Coming to social media websites, we might have seen how posts of our friends are automatically updated in our screen, or in web developer language, we call it as viewport, right? Do you want to know what is the foundation stone for all such amazing inventions? To be specific, most of the modern frameworks or libraries like Angular, React, jQuery, Vue are born here. Who knows? If you know this, you could build your own framework or library in the progressing world. And I want you to do for sure. Hi guys, welcome to mrktutorials. Here we are about to learn what is DOM element and also how to use JavaScript in DOM manipulation. The prerequisites of this video are: what is DOM, DOM interface, property versus method versus attribute. These three videos in this playlist are really important to watch before this video. This video is a bit longer video because it involves live coding and also live commenting. If you feel the audio is not matching this video, you could mute it and follow along for sure. I mentioned comment everywhere in the code, and if you are new to programming and don't know what comment is, you can Google it, and Google says it as a piece of text placed within a program to help others use to understand it, which the computer ignores when running the program. In our case, it is browser which ignores while running the program. And it is green color with 2 slashes at the start to be more specific in the entire code. I will be covering basics of any programming language in upcoming videos, so please do subscribe and share to all your friends. For those who already saw my past 2 videos, that is DOM interface and property versus method versus attribute, in this playlist, this video will be more easy. So what are DOM elements? Element object represents an HTML element or SVG element. Element is the most general base class from which all the element objects objects that represent these elements in a document are inherited. It only has methods, properties common to all kinds of elements. Let's start coding. Open Visual Studio Code. All the codes are pushed to GitHub repo and the link is mentioned in the description below. I don't want to code directly, so I searched a navbar in Google and found one in CodePen. You might have seen the code mostly written in HTML CSS. I would like to slightly replicate it with only JavaScript and also add CSS using JavaScript. Of course, throughout the video, I will be sharing other ways we could do this too. And at the end of the video, I will be sharing what are the topics covered in this video. Please follow comments for easy understanding. At first, I will be creating one navbar element using createElement method and I will be putting it into the body tag. So document.body is easier way to access body tag and we are appending our navbar to it. It will directly append our navbar at the end. So I wanted to add a div element with a container class and access it using two ways like querySelector or getElement by class name. querySelector is used to access DOM using CSS selectors. In CSS, we will be writing like .classname #ID. So similar way we can be accessing using querySelector. getElement by class name is used to access all the elements with the class name property. Since classes can be used multiple times throughout the DOM, when we access them with this DOM method, we get a collection of HTML elements. We will be adding li elements to navbar element. There are two ways. Here we use dynamic way and static way. A static way increases number of lines of code and also some work. If you want to add few changes to it in the future, we need to again copy paste the code and make changes accordingly. Dynamic way is easier and one-time kind of setup thing. But dynamic way is easier and one-time setup kind of thing, which helps to make changes easy. Being a web developer, you must be accepting more changes, and dynamic way is more handy as changes are common ritual in our daily life. Finally, we add some CSS using style property of an element. If you want to look all the properties of an element, go to MDN docs, or you can use console.dir to log what the HTML element in the console. If you want to look all the properties of an element, go to MDN docs, or you can even use console.dir to log what the HTML element has properties in the console tab in DevTools. You might have observed by putting class, it is not assigning any class, because class name is a property and class is an attribute that invokes that class name property. As we discussed in property versus method versus attribute video, we can invoke and property using an attribute. These are things covered in this video: creating an element, accessing an element, using property of an element, CSS manipulation of element, using attribute to invoke property right way, dynamically adding elements to DOM, accessing element using CSSOM Selector, or that is querySelector. Apple, one of the world's largest company, which is known for its quality of products and also they are good at marketing their own products. Have you seen Apple website? The way they promote iPhone is very impressive, right? Just see how smooth and amazing it shows specifications on scroll of this website. Do you want to build similarly amazing and impressive websites? Then we need to understand for which action what we need to show. See here, they are showing something on scroll or something when we put our mouse pointer on that text. It is underlining something. Or if we see a video in a YouTube, you can see play, pause, captions, etc. buttons. And by the way, that video is from our channel only. And don't forget to watch for sure. So these all actions can be achieved using DOM events, which are going to be covered in this video. I have seen lot of videos on DOM events in YouTube, Udemy and other tutorials. I didn't find the exact usage and clear-cut understanding them. So I wanted to get little advanced in the theory part and make easier in the action part. Before starting about the DOM events, I would highly recommend to look into these prerequisites. What is DOM? What is document interface? Property versus method versus attribute. DOM element. Because these help in understanding what DOM is and manipulate it easily using JavaScript. And also follow this video very carefully, as this video is important for interviews as well as learning frameworks in JavaScript. Let's start theory part of this video. Event is nothing but the reaction of browser to the user action. It is like switching on a fan in the real life. So since these events are to be handled by JavaScript, they must be in the form of an object with reference to some interface, which is also called event interface. Events doesn't necessarily mean something user acts on the web page with input devices like mouse or keyboard. It can also be automated notifications happening in DOM, like when some pop-up pops up or when checkbox is checked, like that. There are few categories of events, like window events. So suppose we want to resize a window, it is a window event. Mouse events like mouse over, mouse out. Form events like form submit or errors in the forms. Keyboard events, so if you click on any key like enter key, control key. Media events like in YouTube, play, pause, etc. buttons. Hey, if you want to perform an event, you can do now itself by clicking on subscribe button, which is also a click event, and also hitting like button, which is also a click event. You can even type comment using keyboard, which is input event, which will be more encouraging to us as well, and submit it using form event, so we can receive your love. Let's see some basic terminology of these events. Event target. It is nothing but the place from which the event has originated. Event handler is the function or code which handles that event. The code as we write in the handler executes as the event originates from the event target. Now that we know what are the event targets and event handlers, we need to have a bridge between them. So from the event target, we need to access the event and give the data to event handler so that the event handler specifically performs that code. So to access events, there are two ways. Now we will discuss the first way. In this way of accessing, we use attributes with on prefix on the HTML element we want to get the event from. Once DOM is rendered, this attribute registered as handler for that event, and we can write a function in JavaScript and call that from this attribute so that it will execute whenever the event occurs. We can also use setAttribute.DOM method to invoke or make changes to this attribute. The second way of accessing these events are we use event listeners. The event listener represents an object that can handle event dispatched or originated by event target object. There are three methods in event target interface: add event listener to listen these events, remove event listener so to stop listening to these events, and dispatch event, which helps to create a custom event and dispatch from the element we want. Whenever there are two ways, we always have a dilemma which way to take. So here I want to clear that dilemma. So among these two methods, which can be used when and which are more efficient? Attributes may be less powerful and less optional compared to listeners, but these attributes are supported by many of the old browsers too. If you are thinking of complex way of handling event, choose listener than attributes. If you want a wide variety of browser support, choose attributes than listeners. Let's dive into action part of this video. In this action part, I will be extending code from the previous video, which we created navbar using JavaScript DOM manipulation and also adding styles using JavaScript. Now we are using two ways of accessing events discussed in the theory part of this video, with few examples and different events. I would like to follow along or just simply watch. I think it's more than enough to understand this. Refer to MDN docs on how to use these two ways of accessing events. And also don't forget to subscribe and like to this video. To make things quick, I made this video little speed while editing. However, you can use playback speed event of YouTube to control the speed. Let's follow along with this flow.